And this is Writers' Voices with Monica and Caroline. I'm your host, Monica Hadley. With me is my co-host and mother, Caroline Kilborn.
And good afternoon, everyone.
And we are broadcasting live on a lovely December day, 2016, December 2nd, 2016. Yep. And we're back in the studio after a holiday absence. I was in Austin. We had two new shows while we were gone. One of them, Mom, you missed out on this one, but the woman that we interviewed was actually Linda Fairstein, who had written a crime detective novel for young readers, kind of along the line of Nancy Drew.
Oh.
And she herself was the former prosecuting attorney for the Manhattan SVU Department, Special Victims Unit, that Law and Order SVU was actually based on.
Oh my gosh, isn't that something?
Yeah, it was based on her unit and on her in particular. And she, to this day, serves as a consultant on that show.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That show's been on for a long time.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna try and post that one up on Writers' Voices this weekend for anyone who missed it. And her book is The Devlin Quick Mysteries, and it's really, really fun. A lot of fun. So what do we have today on Writers' Voices?
Well, today we have a most interesting book. It's called The Politics of Unity, An Invitation to the High Road, and it's written by Michael Cuddehe, and he lives in Fairfield, but he's out of town right now, so he's on the phone with us. Okay, let's get a little background here. Michael Cuddehe is a veteran market analyst, trader, and fund manager, and is the managing member of Strategic Global Advisors. Since 2001, he has published Risk and Opportunity, a quarterly political and economic newsletter, and is the author of Chronicle of Catastrophe, a contemporaneous history of the Bush years.
And I think you can tell by the title which side of the aisle he stands on. Michael, welcome to Writers' Voices.
Thank you.
Now, I will say though that even though the Chronicles of Catastrophe might make you think you're on one side of the aisle, you're actually independent, correct?
I am a lifetime independent, proudly so, and I'm generally find myself pretty close to the middle of our political divide, and I tend maybe on some issues to lean one way or on other issues to lean another way, but generally my more conservative friends consider me a lefty and my liberal friends consider me a right-winger. So that way I know that I'm generally somewhere close to the middle.
So if you can't please everyone, you might as well please yourself.
That's right.
Right, absolutely.
So the title of your new book is The Politics of Unity, An Invitation to the High Road. Tell us why you wrote this book and what you would like to see come from it.
Well, I've been interested in issues of social justice and integrity in public life really for my whole life, and this is something I guess I inherited from my father, who would, at the breakfast table at any given moment could go off based on something that he was reading in the newspaper, complaining about corruption and whatnot in our government, and so that made an imprint, and so I've always had an interest in this area. And in 1990, when I took a break from the trading desk, I took a pass at writing what I called at that time the politics of unity, and giving expression to these ideas that I thought would be helpful to bridge what was already at that time fairly noticeable and toxic divide in our politics. And that at the time just wasn't mature enough and didn't seem to be really the right time to publish it. And then in 1994, I got involved with the Natural Law Party, and that really helped flesh out my understanding and appreciation for the way our political process works and what the major issues are, and in particular the Natural Law Party's approach to finding balanced solutions for society was very instructive and stuck with me. So I continue to think about these issues ever since, and then this past year it all seemed to come together with even before the really toxic campaign that we just endured. I just seemed to be, for some reason, the inner impulse was very strong that this was the time to bring this project to fruition, and I felt very supported in Fairfield and for doing that, and was able to focus and pull it all together. And so I've been getting pretty good feedback from it. I hope that this will be helpful to people who realize how damaging the current state of our political process is to our national unity and to our collective future. And hopefully this will provide people with some ideas and inspiration to move forward and start to develop an approach to our politics that's more constructive, and ultimately starting to cultivate unity, national unity. We've been cultivating disunity for about 30 years now, and it's really reached a level of division in our country now that has not been seen since the Civil War. And we're not quite to the point of facing off and killing each other yet, but it wouldn't totally surprise me if we got there the way things are going. So it's gotten pretty nasty, and I hope that I'll be able to contribute to people kind of breaking out of their partisan silos and starting to appreciate the good intentions and genuine desires of people on the opposite side, and start to realize how we have a lot more in common than we do that divides us. And which reminds me of this really charming ad that's been on recently from Apple with a poet reciting his poem expressing that sentiment. We have much more in common, my friends, than we do that divides us. So
it can be really hard in this day and age to see that. I think, Michael, there's so much. This is a small book. It's not hard to read. It's it's written very clearly. You use quotes extremely well. You have things footnoted. So, at first I thought, oh boy, we have an hour to fill, and, it's a short book. But when I started reading, I realized each chapter could be an hour conversation. But there's, one thing that we don't know, a lot of us do not have a very good grounding in American history. And while I agree that the nation does seem extremely divided now, I don't know if I would say that it's more divided than it has been since the Civil War. I mean, if you were around, I was a child, you were probably a child in the 60s, there was some pretty heavy-duty division there.
Yeah.
Where
the
people did end up dead.
Time, a lot of conflict and division, but, the partisan polarization, I just kind of made that statement based on the partisan division in our government, in our House and in our Senate, is a reflection, really, of what's going on in the country, and that partisan division just numerically is actually equaling and in the case of the House, exceeding what it was in 1900, 1890s to 1900 was the last time it was as bad.
Yeah,
and,
I have some old family letters from that time period. There was one side of the family that were extremely anti-Republican in the late 1800s, and but then there was another side that became extremely anti-Democrat in the early 1900s. There were some, horrible, horrible songs and poems and stuff in this material about Roosevelt. There was, I think we have a tendency to think that things, that we all got along except for the Civil War, and now suddenly we're not. And I don't see it that way.
No, I think that there's I think a lack of understanding in a lot of cases about the value of opposing views and the willingness to listen to and consider opposing views. I think that's a very healthy thing, and sometimes those debates can get pretty passionate. But if they're honorable and if they they're respectful and fact based, that's a very healthy process. And that kind of balanced, integrous opposition, it creates a healthy political process and a dynamic stability in our national politics. But we've gone way, way beyond that now. We're into a fact-free environment where people can throw out anything. If it's couched in such a way to appeal to a certain partisan crowd, then it gets picked up by the media and echoed and debated as if it's a valid position. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have any factual basis and fundamental agreement on what the reality is that we're debating. There is none of that. So we've moved into a fact-free basis, and in this fact-free environment, the demonization of our opponents has become standard practice. And that makes it very difficult to come to really find a way to make common cause and find a way to address, at least in part, the concerns of each other. When we spend most of our time publicly demonizing our opposition, then it's pretty hard to then sit down with them and try and make common cause and justify that to the people that you've been demonizing them to.
Exactly.
It gets to the point where we're finding compromise and a way to go forward with your opposition is seen as surrender. So this is the way wars happen. Just the refusal and unwillingness to embrace compromise and to appreciate the genuine concerns of those who might disagree with us.
And the problem is that what I see sometimes is that one side seems more willing to compromise than the other, and then it doesn't end up being compromise. It just ends up being giving in over and over and over again. And so the side that doesn't play fair ends up winning.
Well, yeah, that there has been an element of that. I think in general, I think on the Democrats in recent years have tried to play by the rules, and Republicans have taken that as weakness, and so continue to push the envelope, push their advantage. So as a result, there has been a lot of movement from what used to be considered the center to the right as a result of that. I think, politically, it's really kind of strange to me to see President Obama profiled as an extreme far left-wing president, when in fact he really occupies a space somewhere in the range of where politically where Richard Nixon did. So he's really pretty much a moderate, and yet he's generally seen by at least half of our country as an extreme, not just a left-wing, but extreme left-wing person, based on the kind of propaganda that's been put forth.
I know, and then the people that I know who really are left-wing are so disappointed with Obama.
Yes.
Because he's not
because
left
he really
enough.
is a moderate.
Yeah, he really is.
He tries to accommodate both sides, and he's not appreciated on the one side, and he's seen as weak by the other side. So as a result, he has been unfortunately fairly ineffective, in my opinion, and a lot of what he has managed to get done is probably going to get rolled back here pretty soon.
Yeah, but at least he, while he was there, he protected Medicare, and they couldn't, no matter what the legislature did, he wasn't going to sign a bill taking away Medicare and Social Security.
Yeah, Medicare. So, well, I mean, it's kind of interesting that after the election, one of the first things that's come out is that Medicare is sort of in the
jeopardy,
in the hopper. It's being targeted, and I don't think that's probably going to happen. Something does need to be done about Medicare. The fiscal problems with Medicare are large and very real, and it's a critically important program for for our senior citizens. But the cost of it is out of control, and a lot of that is part of the the undue influence of vested interest in our politics. So,
right.
Hopefully, we can hope that our new President Trump will really proceed to drain the swamp, as he has promised to do. He may do some things that I may not appreciate, and a lot of people won't appreciate. But if he does that, it may all be worth it. So that I think has been the underlying concern that's driven both the Bernie Sanders phenomenon and the Donald Trump phenomenon. Is great, tremendous frustration by the average American citizen with the corruption and incapability of Washington to really govern or to move anything forward in a reasonable or balanced way.
Yeah, well, Trump's appointments so far haven't indicated any draining.
Well, it doesn't look that way on the surface, but we don't really know. We don't know what he's going to do. He seems to like to keep it that way. And so at this point, that's what we got. So we can hope that he does that. I mean, he would, in order to do so, he would need people that really understand how things work, and where all the skeletons are hidden, and in order to give him the leverage to really drain the swamp. So let's hope so. I mean, that's my greatest hope for what he might accomplish, is that he really does that. And so let's hope that he does that.
You're listening to Writers' Voices with Monica and Caroline, and our guest today is Michael Cuddehe, author of The Politics of Unity, An Invitation to the High Road. Are we pronouncing your name correctly, Michael?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so you said this book was about 25 years in the making, in some sense. But when you sat down to write it, tell me, in this past year, and there's a lot of really current references in here. Tell me a little bit about your writing process and how you decided to structure the book.
Well, in my past efforts, I had, I guess, developed points with fairly extensively. Like there's a chapter in here on the concept of Dharma as applied to our society, Western society. And I think I had 30-some pages on Dharma, and in this book that we're just discussing, that's just been published, the chapter on Dharma is 2.5 pages, and so that reflects a lot of deliberate activity to try to consolidate all the different ideas that I thought would contribute to an uplifted or upgraded political process, to consolidate all those ideas into sort of bite-sized offerings that would be easy for people to absorb. And it's become apparent to me that people's ability to really read long form
has declined,
compromised by the internet. We're used to we're just used to reading things in small bites, and so that's the way I approached this. I decided to create small chapters, 2 to 3 pages on balance, that address each of the specific ideas that I felt should be addressed in this consideration. So it's a small book by design. It's 150 pages total, and it covers a lot of ground for a small book. And I really worked on the chapters to make them as consolidated, as concise and focused as I could, and really worked with my editor, my wife Jane, who was really relentless about grammar and usage and smoothing and filling the gaps between logical concepts. So I really worked over the chapters a lot to make them as relevant as I could, and citing examples that I used, and I divided it into 2 parts. I divided it into the general principles that contribute to an uplifted process or an upgraded political process, and then part 2 is a little shorter. That I hate when people complain about things and then they don't offer any solutions. So I offer what I consider to be the essential issues that need to be addressed to remove the obstacles to an upgraded political process. I think the American people are fed up with our political process. I think the election of Donald Trump was sort of a cry of desperation over a process that no longer serves the people, and so I addressed a number of issues, 10 steps actually, that I think need to be addressed in order to sort of open the floodgates to an upgraded process that really meets our needs going forward. And I think that the real motivating factor in this was the realization that our technology is now growing by the power that's being bestowed on us by our technology is growing by leaps and bounds geometrically, and that power is both for good and evil. And so our politics, the way it works these days, is really quite primitive. It's very tribal, and vulnerable to demagoguery, as we've seen in the current campaign, demonization of our opponents, creating division, mistrust, even hatred of those that disagree with us, and potentially violence. So I think that the power that we're gaining from our technology will, if we continue with this kind of political paradigm going forward, this power that we're developing will ultimately be used for destruction, and probably destruction on a scale that we could hardly imagine and certainly have never seen before. So I think the motivation that I felt to really write this book and put my best effort into consolidating it and making it clear is that we, as a society and human civilization, really need to embrace an upgraded political paradigm that's adequate to keep pace with the power that we are gaining from our advancing technology. If we continue to operate in this primitive political paradigm, then I think that we're headed for war, and it will be a war, far beyond anything that's been seen before. So that's the vision and the motivation for this book, and I've tried to emphasize as much as possible the upbeat, positive elements of applying a politics of unity. But behind that is the realization of where we're headed if we don't do this. So I feel that the necessity is the mother of invention. So some people might see this book as a compilation of high-minded political ideals and dismiss it just as that. But I feel that necessity is the mother of invention, and this is our opportunity and our existential need to step up to a higher level of political process and really utilize our technology for the unfoldment of the full potential of humanity rather than for destruction.
You have a chapter 32 on corporatism, and I was wondering about the lobbyists. I know there's a lot of corporations that hire a great many lobbyists to try to influence our legislature and our Congress, and it's mind-boggling to me that they have so much power. Would you read chapter 32? Could you read that for us?
Okay. So the chapter 32 is entitled Corporatism. One of the primary polarizing and confusing influences in public life has been persistent, well-financed lobbying and public relations campaigns backed by corporate interests. The efforts of these campaigns are always one-sided, often to the point of deliberate misinformation, and tailored to the narrow interests of their patrons, not to the general welfare. Every industry has its trade groups and political action committees, promoting their interests by channeling money to lobbyists and candidates. Since every possible issue of general concern also impacts some corporate interest or another, there are virtually no issues that don't receive the attention of these groups. And when a big issue, such as health reform, arises, the money flow is downright astonishing. A Center for Public Integrity analysis of Senate lobbying disclosure forms for 2009 shows that more than 1,750 companies and organizations hired about 4,525 lobbyists, 8 for each member of Congress, to influence health reform bills.
No.
And those are just the declared lobbyists.
Whoa.
Many, as an aside, many don't register. They call themselves consultants.
Ah.
The number was certainly much higher than that. So, excuse me. Healthcare is something every citizen needs at some point in their life. It is an important and fundamentally nonpartisan issue. However, due to the relentless distortion of this issue by corporate interests vested in the status quo, we may never have an honest debate on healthcare. Environmental conservation is another issue of general concern that transcends left-right politics, and one that is inherently conservative. However, it is otherwise conservative interests that routinely oppose virtually all efforts to craft sound environmental policy. The environment is our commonwealth. We are all dependent on it for life, and when it is violated, we are all damaged. There is no natural polarity on this issue, but there are powerful corporate interests making billions of dollars by polluting the environment. If they were forced to clean up after themselves, i.e., assume the full cost of production, it would cost them a good deal of their profits. Not surprisingly, they don't want to pay to clean up after themselves. They have been getting away with polluting the Commonwealth and offloading the cost of cleanup onto the public for a long time, and they don't want to change. Public relations campaigns employed in these matters are often framed in left-right political terms, utilizing subterfuge and inflammatory rhetoric to sow division and mistrust. They promote ideas that create confusion and often convince people to actually vote against their own interests, while casting fellow citizens with opposing views as the enemy. These kinds of campaigns are morally bankrupt and have had a profoundly destructive effect on the fabric of society. The truth of the matter is that fundamental liberal and conservative concerns are like the left and right legs of the body politic. They are both needed to move forward. The notion that they are incompatible is a false notion, promoted by people and organizations who hope to benefit their narrow interests by creating division and mistrust. If we are to bootstrap ourselves up from the low road of our degraded political process, we must collectively agree to put a stop to these deliberately divisive, corrupting, and profoundly dishonest practices.
And that won't be easy, will it? Thank you.
No, it won't be. It won't be easy. And
because people are susceptible to the
Yeah.
to those tactics. I mean, it's been proven over and over again through history that propaganda works.
Yeah, it's like
well, yes, it does. I think that people are vulnerable to propaganda, and I don't claim in this book to have all the answers. What I'm hoping to do is to reach people who, primarily younger people, I think, who are not vested in the current paradigm and who realize how damaging and destructive it is and unhealthy and divisive, and who are looking for ideas that will help them to fashion an approach to our political discourse and political process and policy generation and governance that will really be service-oriented and genuinely integrous. So I think I think that there are a lot of people who fall into that category, not just young people. I think that they feel generally that that there's nothing that can be done because politics is a dirty business. It's always been a dirty business and probably always will be. And I disagree with that. I think, as I said before, that necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that this is our opportunity where things have gone so far off the rails, and the consequences of allowing the current paradigm to dominate are going to be, in my opinion, catastrophic. And so I think as people come more and more to realize that there will be more of a willingness and ability to transcend this current conflict-based paradigm and to embrace a higher political paradigm and a political ethic.
Michael, there's so many nuggets of wisdom in here, and
oh my goodness!
One of the chapter 29, The Politician's Dilemma. I loved your description of the New Yorker cartoon, which pictures a politician addressing his staff and saying, "Have you figured out how I can be on the right side of history without being on the wrong side of now?"
Yeah.
And it does seem like really well-intentioned people get into politics with the intentions of doing the right thing, but
right.
They, not too long after they're inside, succumb to the prevailing culture of the institution, and you're like, well, what happened?
Well, I think a big part of the problem is our campaign finance system, so that people, I do think, by and large, almost all of the people that go into politics and governance think initially that they're going to do good things, and but in order to get there, they have to embrace a process that is compromising at the outset. They have to raise the average successful candidate for the House of Representatives, for U.S. Representative, spent $1.5 million on their campaign in 2012. The average Senate winner spent over $10 million. That's
crazy.
Just not
how much do those jobs pay?
Well, the sad part is that money is needed in the world for so many people to survive, and
instead of
that, yeah. Now I have a solution, but I don't know if it's possible. But my solution was every candidate who makes it to the final
makes
race,
the cut.
Makes the cut.
Makes the cut through the primary.
The government gives them X number of dollars. They may spend it however they wish. Travel, TV ads, whatever. They cannot take money from any other organization or person. And they can't use their own money either.
So
now,
level the playing field.
To level the playing field. Now, I don't know if that's ever going to be a possibility, but wouldn't that be something? And then, we might finally get some.
There have been moves over the years to try and move in that direction with public financing of campaigns, but they never went far enough to actually have much of an impact, I would say. Michael, do you have
Yeah, they've not been able to, and this is really part of people respond to incentives, and the incentives here are just really very difficult to ignore. It takes someone of exceptional character to walk away from the advantage that an incumbent has. The odds for re-election of an incumbent are 9-1 in favor of the incumbent, and because once you're in, then the resources that are available from those who are looking to buy influence are adequate to beat back any challenge from any challenge, really. So that is sadly it's a very, very difficult thing, and it's not going to change until the American people demand that it changes. And so that ultimately is where the problem lies. The people get the government that they deserve. We tolerate and give our support to people who take money from vested interests, and then work to craft and vote for public policy that serves the needs of those vested interests. So as long as we continue to do that, then we're going to continue to get the status quo. And so again, we can hope that Donald Trump delivers on this one thing that he campaigned on, that he's going to drain the swamp, and hopefully, there'll be an opportunity for some real change in that direction. But it's going to be a difficult thing to dislodge, and I do think that this is the linchpin that will make it possible to elevate our political process or not.
Getting the money out of politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Getting the undue influence of money out of the political process, and I think Bernie Sanders demonstrated that you can do that, and even Donald Trump, he went against the Republican establishment, and he didn't even spend that much money of his own, and Hillary Clinton outspent him 10-1, and he still won. So it's possible that it could be done if the money, especially if the money is no longer effective. That would really that would be very helpful. But in my opinion, it's the linchpin. I do get a fair amount of pushback on this issue from people. They feel that this is probably not going to be doable, and in my opinion, anyway, that it's critical. So we'll have to see. There are quite a few things that need to happen in order to really elevate our political process, and this is, if not the key, it's certainly one of the key issues.
Is establishing term limits another key to this?
That's sort of a mixed bag, in my opinion. I think with term limits, you do get rid of people who are not people, but you also get rid of people who are good people. And by the time they've really fully absorbed the system and they know how things work and how to get things done, then they get termed out. So it's a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to Writers' Voices with Monica and Caroline, and our guest today is Michael Cuddehe, author of The Politics of Unity, An Invitation to the High Road. Michael, is there another section that you wanted to share with the listeners today?
Well, I was thinking of, let's see, chapter 15 is our challenge. How much time do we have here?
Well, we have about 15 minutes left, so I think there's time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this sort of consolidates what is what was the real driving vision and motivation for the book, and so it's chapter 15 entitled "Our Challenge." We're like fighter pilots who can no longer tolerate the G-forces generated by the latest high-performance jet fighters. The geometrically expanded capabilities of our technology are racing ahead of our ability to manage them. Increasingly, they can only be managed by design, which is in turn informed by the values and intentions of the designers. Artificial intelligence is the looming pinnacle of our technological ascendance and the ultimate example of the problem we face. Quoting Stephen Hawking from a recent interview, it's likely to be either the best or worst thing ever to happen to humanity. So there's huge value in getting it right. We should shift the goal of artificial intelligence from creating pure, undirected artificial intelligence to creating beneficial intelligence. It might take decades to figure out how to do this, so let's start researching this today, rather than the night before the first strong AI is switched on. Back to me, economically, the implementation of advancing technology has already vastly expanded the reach of management, spawning consolidation in every industry, reducing diversity and competition at every level, and concentrating wealth and power in fewer and fewer hands. This concentration of economic power has in turn resulted in the wholesale corruption of our political process and government, as self-interested parties vie to control policy in order to enhance their advantage and avoid accountability for their actions. So in the interview quoted above, Hawking was asked about the issue of technological unemployment, with robots replacing most humans at work. Hawking responded that if the resources produced by the machines are fared fairly equitably, most people will be able to live a somewhat more luxurious life. If not shared, most people would end up miserably poor while the owners of the machines consolidate wealth, and that presently we are trending toward the latter outcome. So the questions that I ask are, what is the purpose of our technology? Is advancing technology for the purpose of enabling a neo-feudal concentration of wealth and power, or is it for the purpose of freeing humanity from the drudgery of physical tasks and limitations, and opening the door to the flowering of human potential? So we're approaching a time, in fact, we've already entered the time, in my opinion, when the old economic paradigm no longer serves. Binary capitalism, socialism is a relic. We need to summon the political will to create a hybrid model that transcends the destructive conflict between these models and draws on the best features of both capitalism and socialism, that honors the needs of capital, encourages innovation, and rewards risk-takers, while directing the development and applications of advanced technology to safeguard and uplift all of humanity. So, and then one last comment from the book here is that from the chapter 3 on transcendence, which I realized, from my long experience in practicing transcendental meditation and being a teacher, that the principle of transcendence was taught to us as a wisdom of integration of life, and I realized that this principle applies not just to inner life; it applies to our society as well. So if we can find a way to embrace this concept in our political process, we can learn that in order to solve a problem or conflict, we must go beyond or transcend the problem to gain a broader and more comprehensive perspective, a perspective of greater commonality, shared values, or underlying unity. This is the essence of the politics of unity.
Thank you, Michael. That was Michael Cuddehe reading from The Politics of Unity, An Invitation to the High Road. In the few minutes we have left, a couple quick things. Last night on NPR On Point, I was listening to a broadcast about this new technology that the Chinese government is implementing to basically give everyone, all the citizens and government agencies and businesses, a social credit score based on their behavior. On, do they do the right thing or not? And depending on what your score is, it will impact what, they're going to reward or punish people and businesses and agencies based on this.
Yeah, but who
score.
decides what's right?
And and it's but it's all, this was unthinkable before modern technology. Do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, this is again the sort of almost like binary choice of that's being presented by our technology. I mean, this is an amazing. I had not heard this before, but it doesn't surprise me. And
apparently, pilot programs are already being implemented.
Yeah. Now, this is the Soviet Union used to have this model of neighborhood minders, more or less that kept track of everybody in their neighborhood and reported on them. And now this idea is being expanded with technology to the whole of society, and gives those in power the ability to potentially monitor everyone and see who is hewing to the party line and who's not. That's potentially really pretty scary.
It is
very scary.
Yeah, their rationale for it is that since they opened the doors to capitalism in China, that there's a lot of greed has come into play and a lot of unfair practices, and there's a deficit of trust between people and businesses, and they're thinking that this is a way to improve that. It's just kind of an interesting.
It's kind of backwards, I think.
I mean, in some sense, it's not that different than our FICA credit scores. Everything you do financially feeds into this score that you have, and then that'll influence what interest rate you can get and whether you can get a loan or not, and things like that. So it's taking that another step further into other types of behavior other than just financial behavior. But it's scary.
Yeah, so that's a little scary. I think that ultimately these kinds of control mechanisms will create more and more potential disruption down the road through suppression. And we really the ultimate solution is really to enhance the collective consciousness of the people so they are more aware of the consequences of their choices and their actions, and maybe more aware of their mutual dependence, and have greater ability to see more broadly and perceive that people who think differently are not necessarily bad people, that they're trying to achieve what they see a good outcome in their lives as well. So I think I think that I guess I'm not surprised to hear that, but I think that it's a little scary.
Michael, what is the fairness doctrine, and why did that get overturned?
Well, fairness doctrine, and interestingly enough, there's a really good piece just today that I saw that kind of reviews this, and it's in the American Interest, and it is actually it says it was it says it was 719, but good for media, bad for America. This is citing a quote by the CEO of CBS, who was recently quoted when interviewed about the toxic campaign waged by Donald Trump, saying that this, it's bad for America, but really good for CBS. So, way to go, Don. And cheering him on and hoping that he doesn't stop doing this sort of thing because it's really good for his corporation. So that's pretty ugly. And so anyway, this piece addresses this issue of how the fairness doctrine was kind of disabled step by step and led to the kind of chaos in our media that we currently have, and the willingness to embrace that chaos in order for the media companies to benefit, even though it's bad for our country. That's pretty ugly. And so anyway, the fairness doctrine was a rule that implemented by the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, that required broadcast media to air balancing positions on issues of public interest. And so this was kind of systematically dismantled, and I don't think we have time to go through the step by step.
No, we don't, unfortunately.
But
it no longer. I mean, I think a lot of us think that it's still the case that they have to present both sides, but it's not.
No,
it's not the case.
No, it's not. And making it worse is that there used to be a limitation on the number of outlets that one corporation could own in any given market. I think it was one radio and one TV outlet. But now there's no longer any limitations. So as a result, we've had massive consolidation in the media that has.
Which makes it even worse. So, Michael, we are out of time, and like I said, we could have spent an hour on almost any subject in the book. Where can people find The Politics of Unity?
So The Politics of Unity is available on Amazon.com in print and also for Kindle. And it is also just of this week up on the iBook store. That's currently the outlets where it's available.
And are you planning any readings locally here in Fairfield?
Yes, I have not yet, but
haven't scheduled it yet. So let us know when that happens.
At Revelations, hopefully next week.
Okay.
And also at Iowa City.
Great.
And then, and for further and updated information, at politicsofunity.com is the politicsofunity.com is the website.
Great.
And I will be beginning the first quarter of next year. I'll start posting to a blog on that site and
wonderful
updating information.
Right, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Mom, do you have closing words for us today?
Yeah, this is from one of the quotes in the book, and it's the quote is from Albert Einstein. Any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex, and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. Amen.
Thank you so much for being with us today on Writers' Voices, and see you next week.